Good morning, everyone. My name is Arpan Bannerjee, and I have been teaching you the paper Administrative System at Union Level, the code of which is BPSC 133, and I'm a doctoral fellow at the Department of East Asian Studies and academic counselor at IGNO. Welcome to yet another learning session of this paper, that is Administrative System at Union Level. So let us, before beginning, so we have so far done the evolution of Indian administration, wherein we have discussed the ancient administrative system, the medieval administrative system, the administrative system under the British Raj, as well as the administrative apparatus that we have post independence, post 1947. Afterwards, we discussed parliamentary democracy in India. That was the second block. And as part of that, we discussed the federal structure in India, the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. In the third block, we had discussed about the institutional framework. As part of that, we have so far discussed in this block the cabinet secretariat, the central secretariat, and in the last class, we had discussed about the All India and Central Services. So let us now move on to the last unit of this third block, that is administrative tribunals. This would be the first topic that we'll be doing today, administrative tribunals. So administrative tribunals, they exercise some judicial powers, and as part of their work, the administrative tribunals, a bulk of decisions, they are involved in a bulk of decisions which are relating to the citizens' matters, which come to them, and then they exercise certain judicial powers to resolve those matters. So administrative tribunals, they exercise judicial powers wherein a bulk of decisions, especially relating to citizens' matters, come from the administrative tribunals. So one very important function of administrative tribunals is that they provide speedy and low cost justice to the citizens. And they not only make adjudication matters accessible to the common man, but also they play a huge role in unburdening the already overburdened judiciary. So, as we all know, that there are lakhs of cases pending. There are crores of cases if we count the high courts and the Supreme Courts that are pending before them. So the administrative tribunals, they play a very significant role in unburdening the already overburdened judiciary, and they also provide speedy and low cost justice to the citizens, and make adjudication matters accessible to the common man. So they play a very important role in our democratic framework, administrative tribunals. Administrative tribunals, they are performing certain semi-legislative and semi-judicial functions also. So when administrative agencies, they undertake the functions of quasi-judicial or semi-judicial nature, they are generally referred to as administrative adjudication. So apart from providing low-cost justice to the citizens and unburdening the already overburdened judiciary, which we have already discussed, administrative tribunals, they also perform certain semi-legislative and semi-judicial functions as well. And they undertake certain quasi-judicial functions or semi-judicial functions. So that is why their task can be referred to as administrative adjudication. So the Constitution of India has made explicit provisions with regard to the administrative tribunals. So Article 323 Clause 1, Article 323A Clause 1 of the Constitution of India, it states that the Parliament may by law provide for the adjudication or trial by administrative tribunals. So, trials of what? Trials of disputes and complaints with respect to recruitment and conditions of services of persons appointed to public services, and also to posts which are in connection with the union or with the state or any local authority as well within the territory of India. So, in the last unit, we had studied about the All India services. So, in this unit, we are discussing the administrative tribunals. So, matters related to those people who are employed in the All India services, they are adjudicated by the administrative tribunals. So, disputes, complaints which are related to the recruitment and conditions of service of those persons who are in All India services or in central services or in state services, they are adjudicated, they are looked after by the administrative tribunals. So we have already discussed the All India and central services in the last lecture. Now, the disputes and complaints that arise with respect to recruitment and conditions of services of those employed in the All India services, central services, and the state services, those disputes and complaints are resolved by the administrative tribunals, which are given in Article 323A, Clause 1 of the Constitution of India. So let us now discuss in detail about these administrative tribunals. So these administrative tribunals, they possess some features of a regular court also. So clause 1 of Article 323A, it clearly stipulates the composition of the administrative tribunal. So the administrative tribunal, it provides for this article, which is Article 323A, Clause 1, it provides for the establishment of an administrative tribunal for the union and a separate administrative tribunal for each state or two or more states. So the first part of this article, that is 323A Clause 1, it deals with the establishment of administrative tribunals at the union level as well as at the state level. Afterwards, this article, it specifies the jurisdiction, powers, and authority which are exercised by these tribunals. This article also provides for the procedures, including the rules of procedures which are to be followed by these tribunals. And it also excludes these administrative tribunals from jurisdiction of all courts except the Supreme Court of India under Article 136 with respect to disputes or complaints. So these tribunals are excluded from the jurisdiction of all courts except the Supreme Court under Article 136 with respect to disputes or complaints. So Article 323A Clause 1 not only provides for the establishment of administrative tribunals, it further stipulates the jurisdiction, power, and authority of these tribunals, as well as the procedures that are to be followed by these tribunals while adjudicating disputes and complaints. And also, it excludes the tribunals from jurisdiction of all courts except the Supreme Court of India under Article 136 of the Constitution of India. The Supreme Court also has laid down certain norms for a tribunal to work on. So the proceedings of a tribunal can only commence on an application. So not by itself, it cannot commence its proceedings by itself. The proceedings of an administrative tribunal can only commence on an application, which is in the nature of a complaint. So a tribunal must have the power of a court relating to discovery, inspection, and taking of evidences. And a tribunal must allow examination and cross-examination of witnesses. So, in this regard, we can clearly see that the tribunal has certain quasi-judicial powers, or what we can call semi-judicial powers, So it has the power of a court with respect to discovery, inspection, and taking of evidences. And also, it must allow examination and cross examination of witnesses as well. And it cannot commence its work on its own, it can only commence its proceedings on an application or a complaint. And also, an administrative tribunal, it must allow legal representation, and its decisions must be based on evidence as per the provisions of the statute by which it has been created. And another very important thing that the Supreme Court has said regarding administrative tribunals is that the members of an administrative tribunal, they must be qualified to be judges of a regular court. And also, an administrative tribunal cannot meet privately, it is required to sit in public. That is a very important requirement of an administrative tribunal, that it is required to sit in public. So let us now see some of the major tribunals that have been formed in India, especially post independence. So the Income Tax Appellate Tribunal is one such tribunal, the Railway Rates Tribunal, the Industrial Tribunals, Copyright Board, the Employees Insurance Court, the Foreigners Tribunal, the Press and Registration Appellate Board, the Central Administrative Tribunal or the CAT, the National Green Tribunal or the NGT, which was formed on the orders of the Supreme Court, the Rent Control Authority, and the military tribunals that are formed to carry out the court martials. So now let us conclude this topic by discussing some merits and demerits of these administrative tribunals. So let us discuss the merits of these administrative tribunals. So administrative tribunals, they provide a mechanism for quick decisions, for speedy justice, for speedy adjudication of disputes and complaints, which is a huge merit. We have already discussed that as well. These administrative tribunals are also very cost effective as well. And as we have already discussed, they provide much needed relief to the already overburdened judiciary. Also, the procedures of the administrative tribunals are quite simplified. They are not that complex. And an administrative tribunal is easy to set up as well. And administrative tribunals, they're capable of dealing with complicated and technical matters also. And finally, they facilitate socio-economic development as well, administrative tribunals. Now, we have discussed the merits of administrative tribunals. Now let us look at some of their demerits also. So the demerits, one of the demerits that has been pointed out by constitutional experts is that there has been a mushrooming of administrative tribunals. There are a lot of administrative tribunals have come up, due to which needless complexities have arose. So there has been a mushrooming of administrative tribunals, because of which needless complexities have come into being. And also, according to constitutional experts, according to critics of administrative tribunals lack uniform procedure. And it is also alleged that they violate the rule of law as well. And in some ways, they undermine the principle of natural justice as well. This has been alleged. And it is also said that the decisions that are taken by administrative tribunals, they are quote unquote invisible. So the question of invisibility of decisions as well is also considered as one of the demerits of administrative tribunals. And there is also limited right to appeal. And the decisions that an administrative tribunal takes, they are quite unpredictable. So the unpredictability of decisions is also one aspect related to administrative tribunals. And finally, there is a lack of specialist judges to deal with certain types of cases. There is a lack of specialist judges as well in these administrative tribunals. So we have discussed the last unit of the third block, that is administrative tribunals. We have discussed what what they are, what their functions are, what the constitution stipulates regarding administrative tribunals, their composition, what the Supreme Court has laid down, the guidelines, what are those guidelines which the Supreme Court has laid down with respect to administrative tribunals. We have discussed that. And we have also discussed some of the major tribunals that have been formed in India post independence. And finally, we have concluded this topic by discussing the merits and demerits of administrative tribunals. So let us now move on to the next block, that is the block fourth of our syllabus, of our paper, that is administrative system at the union level. So this block is concerned with commissions which are there in India. And as part of this fourth block, we are going to discuss 6 such commissions. So the first one that we are going to discuss is the Niti Aayog, or the National Institute for Transforming India. The second commission that we'll be discussing is the Union Public Service Commission, or the UPSC. Afterwards, we shall be discussing the Election Commission of India. Then we'll be discussing the Finance Commission. Afterwards, we'll be discussing the Central Vigilance Commission. And finally, we will conclude this block by discussing the administrative reforms commissions that have been formed from time to time. So let us begin this fourth block of our paper by discussing the first unit, that is National Institute for Transforming India, or the Niti Aayog. So as we all know, post-independence, the framers of our constitution, the founding fathers, they came up with the establishment of the Planning Commission. And India adopted the model of 5-year plans. All right. And even before that, the Bombay plan that was adopted, even before independence, that also called for the establishment of a planning commission as well. And our first Prime Minister, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, as well as Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose as well, they were also very keen to establish a planned regime in India, a system of planning in India. So that is why, as per the Bombay plan, the Planning Commission of India was established post-independence. And we all know that since 1950, since the constitution came into being, the government of India has attempted to bring about a rapid social and economic growth in the entire country through planned effort. So the concept of planning was given very much emphasis by our early leaders, our founding fathers. And that is why the purpose of that was to bring about social and economic growth, so that the directive principles of state policies which are enshrined in our constitution can be fully realized. Because Dr. Ambedkar also clearly mentioned in the Constituent Assembly of India that without social and economic democracy, without social and economic equality, political democracy would prove to be useless. So that is why our founding fathers, be it our first Prime Minister Pandit Nehru, be it Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose or Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, they were all eager for a planned regime in India, for a system of planning. They all wanted to establish a system of planning in India in order to bring out rapid social and economic growth. So the prime institution that was entrusted to carry out this task was the Planning Commission, which was launched in 1950, and the Niti Aayog that is there today is its successor. It replaced the Planning Commission, which had become quite redundant and quite anachronistic and antediluvian as well, was replaced by the Niti Aayog in 2014. And on January 2015, the Planning Commission, it was replaced by the Niti Aayog or the National Institute for Transforming India. So now let us discuss the composition of the Niti Aayog. So the chairperson of the Niti Aayog is the Honorable Prime Minister of India, and the vice chairperson is appointed by the Honorable Prime Minister of India. The governing council of the Niti Aayog, it comprises the chief ministers of all the states and the lieutenant governors of union territories. So there's a chairperson, which is the Prime Minister of India, followed by vice chairperson appointed by the Prime Minister of India, as well as the governing council, which comprises the chief ministers of all states and lieutenant governors of union territories. Also, there are regional councils as well of the Niti Aayog that are formed to address specific issues or contingencies that impact more than one state or region. So, issues and contingencies or emergencies that are impacting one or more state of the country, or which are impacting an entire region of the country, to address those, regional councils are formed. And these regional councils are formed for a specific tenure also. They are not formed permanently, rather for a specific tenure. And these regional councils are also chaired by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, and they comprise of the chief ministers of states and lieutenant governors of the respective states and regions, regarding which these regional councils have been formed. So, for example, if a regional council has been formed for Eastern India, then although it will be chaired by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, but it will comprise of the chief ministers and lieutenant governors of Eastern India. If it is formed for Western India, it will consist of the chief ministers and lieutenant governors of the states and provinces of Western India. So, likewise. And there are certain full-time members as well in the Niti Aayog. However, there are certain part-time members as well. So there are two members from leading universities, research organizations, or relevant institutions who are there in ex officio capacity. And these part-time members are appointed on a rotational basis. So the ex officio members, let us now discuss who are the ex officio members. There are maximum of 4 members of the Union Council of Ministers who are part of the Niti Aayog. So 4 members, we have already discussed that when we were discussing the cabinet, that 4 members of the Union Council of Ministers are nominated by the Honorable Prime Minister of India, who act as ex officio members of the Niti Aayog. There is a chief executive officer also of the Niti Aayog, who is appointed by the Prime Minister of India for a fixed tenure, and the rank of the CEO of Niti Aayog is parallel to the Secretary to Government of India. And experts, specialists, and practitioners with relevant domain knowledge are also there as special invitees nominated by the Honorable Prime Minister of India. And the Niti Aayog also has its own secretariat as well. So now let us discuss the 7 pillars of the Niti Aayog. So the Niti Aayog works on 7 pillars. The first pillar is that pro-people. It is pro-people. Whatever work it does is pro-people. The second one is pro-activity. The Niti Aayog, the third pillar that it works on is participation. Works in a participatory way. All the members that we have discussed, they participate equally. The fourth pillar is empowerment. The fifth one is inclusion. The sixth pillar that the Niti Aayog, based on which it works, is equality. And finally, it puts a lot of emphasis on transparency. So, the Niti Aayog is pro-people, pro-activity. It emphasizes on participation, empowerment, inclusion, equality, and transparency. So these are the 7 pillars based on which the Niti Aayog works. Now let us discuss some of the functions of the Niti Aayog. So the first function of the Niti Aayog is to evolve a shared vision along with active involvement of states on national development priorities and strategies. So one of its most important function is to evolve a shared vision for the development of the country, along with the active involvement of states on issues related to national development. So, to to formulate a shared vision for national development priorities and strategies by involving the states in this process of formulation. That is the very first and one of the foremost functions of the Niti Aayog. Another very important function of the Niti Aayog is that it fosters cooperative federalism through structured support initiatives and mechanisms with the states on a continuous basis. So, in sustaining the cooperative federal structure of our country, the Niti Aayog, it plays a very important role. It has been entrusted with the task of fostering cooperative federalism through structured support initiatives and mechanisms with the states on a continuous basis, and recognizing that strong states make a strong nation. So not ignoring the states. So this was one of the you can say this was one of the grievances that was there against the planning commission, that the states were being sidelined, the center was imposing its agenda on the states. So that is why the Niti Aayog, it has been entrusted with the function that it has to recognize that strong states make a strong union. uh, so only if the states are strong, only then the nation will be strong. So that is why fostering cooperative federalism is one of the most important functions of Niti Aayog. Also, the Niti Aayog develops mechanisms to formulate credible plans at the village level, at the lowest level, financial devolution at the very local level, devolution of not only finances but also powers. So, in order to do that, it develops mechanisms to formulate credible plans at the village level and aggregate these plans progressively at higher levels of government. So, formulate credible plans at the village level and aggregate these plans progressively at the higher levels of government. The Niti Aayog also ensures that the interests of national security are incorporated in economic strategy and policy. So, the interests of national security are incorporated in economic strategy and policy. That also is another task. The Niti Aayog has to ensure that national security interests are incorporated in economic strategy and policy. Further, the Niti Aayog pays special attention to those sections of the society that are at risk of not getting benefited adequately by economic progress of the country. So the socially and economically backward sections of the society, they are also to be looked after by the Niti Aayog, and that is why the Niti Aayog pays special attention to these sections of the society that may be at risk of not getting benefited adequately by the economic progress of the country. Also, the Niti Aayog designs long-term policies and programs and equally monitors their progress and efficacy as well. And the lessons that the Niti Aayog learns through monitoring, they are used for making necessary mid-course corrections as well and incorporating improvements. So this was something that was not there in the planning commission because it used to formulate 5-year plans. So there was very little scope to make mid-course corrections. So this is one of the important things that the Niti Aayog is doing, is that it also has the room to make mid-course corrections and incorporating improvements from the lessons that it has learned through monitoring. So, designing long term policies and programs and monitoring them as well is another very important function of the Niti Aayog. It also encourages partnerships between educational and policy research institutions as well. And it creates a knowledge, innovation, and entrepreneurial support system through a collaborative community of national and international experts, practitioners, and other partners. So, this is also another function of the Niti Aayog. So, we have discussed the Niti Aayog, the National Institution for Transformation for Transforming India, which is the successor of the Planning Commission. We have discussed its composition and we have discussed its 7 pillars and its functions. Now let us discuss the next commission, that is the Union Public Service Commission. The Government of India Act 1919, which is also referred to as the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms, it provided for the setting up of a Public Service Commission for the first time. And the Lee Commission also, it strongly backed the setting up of a Public Service Commission. And accordingly, a Central Public Service Commission was set up in 1926. So, owing to the recommendations of the Simon Commission, this Central Public Service Commission was renamed as Federal Public Service Commission in 1937. And after India achieved independence in 1947, this same Federal Public Service Commission continued to work till 1950 with the same nomenclature, and after the Constitution came into being, the nomenclature was changed to the Union Public Service Commission from the Federal Public Service Commission. It was renamed to the Union Public Service Commission in 1950. Article 315 of the Constitution of India, it envisages 3 categories of public service commissions. The UPSC, which is to serve the union, a state public service commission to serve the state, and also a joint public service commission if needed for 2 or more states. So 3 kinds of public service commissions have been envisaged: the Union Public Service Commission, the state public service commissions to serve states, and in if needed, joint public service commissions as well to serve 2 or more states. Now let us see the composition of the Union Public Service Commission, or the UPSC. So the Union Public Service Commission, it is headed by a chairperson and it has other members as well. The Constitution, it does not clearly specify the number of members, but it authorizes the President of India to determine the number of members. So it is under the authorization of the President of India. It is under his discretion. It is under her discretion that to decide how many members the UPSC will have. The strength of the UPSC, it varies between 6 to 10 members. Normally, in 1950, when the UPSC came into being, it comprised of 4 members, including a chairperson. At present, the UPSC has a chairperson and 10 other members. So, as per the provisions of Article 316, Clause 1, the chairperson and other members of the UPSC, they are appointed by the President of India, and it is at her discretion, at the discretion of the President of India, to discuss whom to decide whom to appoint as the member of the UPSC of the Commission. So, in the choice of the members of the UPSC, the President has to ensure that half of the total number of members shall be persons who at the time of appointment have held office for at least 10 years, either at the Government of India or under any state government. So that has to be ensured, that they have held office for at least 10 years, either at the union level or at the state level. Excuse me. Now let us see some of the functions of the UPSC. So, matters relating to methods of recruitment to civil services and civil posts. The UPSC deals with such matters which are related to methods of recruitment to civil services and civil posts. It also decides the principles that are to be followed in making appointments to civil services and in making promotions and transfers as well. The UPSC also lays down principles that are to be adhered and to ascertain the suitability of candidates for such appointments, promotions, and transfers. All disciplinary matters relating to a person serving under the union government in a civil capacity are dealt with by the UPSC. So these are some of the important functions of the Union Public Service Commission, and any claim by or in respect of any such person who is serving or has served under the Union Government of India in a civil capacity, that a loss incurred by him in defending legal proceedings instituted against him or her in respect of official acts should also be paid out of the Consolidated Fund of India. The UPSC has clearly stipulated it, and the UPSC also deals with any matter that the president may refer to it from time to time. So these are some of the functions of the Union Public Service Commission. So far we have discussed two commissions: the Niti Aayog, that is the National Institution for Transforming India, which was the successor of the Planning Commission. We have also discussed the Union Public Service Commission, the UPSC, which is there in Article 315 of the Constitution of India. We have discussed its composition and we have discussed its function, as well as its constitutional responsibilities and constitutional provisions. So let us now move on to the next commission, which is very important because it has been entrusted with conducting the elections in India. That is the Election Commission. So provision for the Election Commission has been made under Article 324 of the Constitution of India, and the Election Commission is regarded as India's guardian of elections. So Article 324 of the Constitution of India, it has made provisions for an independent election commission for the conduct of free and fair elections in the country. And with effect from 1989, all political parties are required to register with the Election Commission of India. Now let us see the composition of the Election Commission of India. So in the Election Commission of India, there is the Chief Election Commissioner, the CEC, and there are other election commissioners as well, who are usually retired IAS officers. So, and they draw their salaries and allowances at par of those of the judges of the Supreme Court of India. So their salaries and allowances are at par with those of the judges of the Supreme Court of India. Also, the Secretariat of the Election Commission of India is based in New Delhi, and which has the offices of the Election Commission. New Delhi is where the Secretariat of the Election Commission is based, and the offices of the Election Commissioner, the Chief Election Commissioner, as well as the Deputy Election Commissioners are based in New Delhi only. Also, the offices of the Director Generals, Principal Secretaries, Secretaries and Under Secretaries are also there in New Delhi only. The Chief Election Commissioner of India can be removed from office as per the rules prevailing in case of a judge of the Supreme Court of India. So only in the same procedure as a judge of the Supreme Court of India can be removed. In order to remove the Chief Election Commissioner of India, the same procedure has to be followed. So the procedure of removal of the Chief Election Commissioner of India is similar to that of the procedure that has to be followed if a judge has to be removed. And the election commissioners, the other election commissioners, those other than the Chief Election Commissioner, they can be removed by the President of India on the advice of the Chief Election Commissioner. Now let us see some of the functions of the Election Commission of India. The Election Commission of India, it supervises, directs, controls and conducts free and fair elections in the country. The Election Commission of India, it prepares the electoral rolls of each constituency of Lok Sabha and also of the state Vidhan Sabhas as well, the legislative assembly as well. The electoral rolls, they are revised and updated after every decadal census and also before every election as well. So not only preparing electoral rolls of each constituency and legislative assembly constituencies as well in the states, but also revising and updating those rolls after every decadal census and also before every election. This is a very important function that is performed by the Election Commission of India. Apart from supervising, directing, controlling, and conducting free and fair elections in the country, which is its constitutional responsibility. The Constitution of India has also entrusted the Supreme Court, the Election Commission of India, that in order to conduct these elections, which it has been given the duty to conduct by the Constitution in a free and impartial manner, the Election Commission, it determines and announces the code of conduct as well before every election. And starting with 1971, with the fifth Lok Sabha elections, the Election Commission of India has issued for each and every election certain advisory model code of conduct. So these guidelines, that is the model code of conduct or the MCC, that are issued by the Election Commission of India, they are to be adhered to by all political parties and candidates as well. Another function of the Election Commission of India is that it conducts the elections to the office of President of India as well as the Vice President of India also, whenever these elections are due. And the Election Commission of India, it also prepares the list of voters and it works out the quota of votes along with the weightage and the value of each vote of electoral college that is required to win the election. In order to conduct these presidential and vice presidential elections, or to conduct the general election at the union level, or the state legislative assembly elections, the Election Commission of India can demand the services of personnel who are working in central and state governments. And after every general election, the Election Commission of India, it grants recognition to political parties as to whether they are national parties or state parties. So this is also a very important function, granting recognition to political parties whether they are state parties or national parties based on their performance in the legislative assembly elections and in the general election. Now let us conclude this topic, that is Election Commission of India, by discussing some of the initiatives that the Election Commission has taken towards modernization. So in order to curb the growing influence of money during elections, the Election Commission of India has appointed Indian Revenue Service officers belonging to the Income Tax Department as election observers with regard to expenditure for all elections, and it has fixed the legal limits on the amount of money which a candidate can spend during election campaigns. So there is a legal limit to the amount of money which a candidate can spend during elections. This also has been decided by the Election Commission of India. It is now taking the service of officers which are employed in the Indian Revenue Service, in the Income Tax Department. So all this is being done to curb the growing influence of money during election. And the Election Commission of India has also fixed a certain legal limits on the amount of money which a candidate can spend during his election campaign. And if a candidate exceeds that, the Election Commission of India is free to take action against that candidate. The judiciary can also take action if there is an election petition regarding that. The Election Commission has also brought in certain improvements in the election procedures as well. And one such improvement has been the introduction of the electronic voting machines or EVM. So in 1993, the electors' photo identity cards or the EPIC card that was also issued, which became mandatory by the 2004 elections. In 1998, the Election Commission of India had also decided on a program for computerization of electoral rolls. So, electoral rolls have now been computerized. And finally, the most important initiative for modernization that has been undertaken by the Election Commission is the introduction of voter verified paper audit trail or VVPAT in general elections. So these were introduced in 8 Lok Sabha constituencies in 2014, and this is a huge achievement of the Election Commission, the introduction of the voter verified paper audit trail or VVPAT. So we have discussed the composition of the Election Commission of India. We have discussed its constitutional duties, its constitutional responsibilities, its functions, and we have finally discussed the initiatives that it has taken towards modernizing itself. Now, let us move on to another very important commission, that is the Finance Commission. So, Article 280, we have already discussed 3 commissions. We have discussed the Niti Aayog, we have discussed the UPSC as well as the Election Commission. The next commission that we have to discuss is the Finance Commission. So, Article 280 of the Constitution of India, it requires that the President of India should appoint a Finance Commission within 2 years from commencement of the Constitution and in every 5 years or even earlier if necessary. So, the President of India has been is required, is constitutionally mandated to appoint a Finance Commission every 5 years, and the Constitution also specifies broadly the terms of reference of the Finance Commission as well as its composition in Article 280. So now let us discuss the composition of the Finance Commission of India. So Article 280, it has fixed the total strength of the Finance Commission of India as well. And it has specified that a Finance Commission, it should consist of a chairperson and 4 other members. So Section 3 of the Finance Act of 1951, it clearly specifies the qualifications that are required for the chairperson of the Finance Commission and also for its members. According to this Finance Act of 1951, Section 3 of this Act, the chairperson of the commission, it shall be selected from amongst persons who have or had experience in public affairs. The other members of the Finance Commission shall be selected from amongst persons who are or have been qualified to be appointed as a judge of a high court, who have expertise in financial and accounts matters, who are profound administrators, and who have expertise in economics. So let us now discuss the functions of the Finance Commission. The distribution between the union and the states of the net proceeds of taxes, revenues, and allocations between the states of the respective shares of such proceeds, it is decided by the Finance Commission. So the distribution between the union and the states of the net proceeds of the tax revenues as well as the allocations between these states of the respective shares of these proceeds, the principles that are to be followed to distribute these tax revenues between the union and the states and between the states themselves. These principles are determined by the Finance Commission of India as per Article 280. And by doing this, The Finance Commission of India, what it does is that it redresses the vertical imbalances that are there between the taxation powers and expenditure responsibilities of the central government and the state governments respectively. And it also carries out an equalization of public services across the states. It also determines the principles that should govern the grants in aid of the revenues of the states out of the Consolidated Fund of India and the sums to be paid to the states by way of grants in aid of their revenues. So the grants in aid that are to be paid to the states by the union government from the Consolidated Fund of India, the principles that should govern these grants, these contingency grants or these statutory grants, what principles should these grants be made to the states? These principles are determined by the Finance Commission of India. Also, it another important function of the Finance Commission of India is to determine the measures that are needed to augment, to improve the Consolidated Fund of India and also the Consolidated Fund of States as well, and to supplement the resources of the panchayats and the municipalities in the states on the basis of the recommendations that are made by the state finance commissions, which have been established by Article 243. So, to augment the Consolidated Fund of States and to supplement the resources of the panchayats and municipalities of states also. So, the State Finance Commission, which has been established by Article 243, Clause I, so based on their recommendations, the Union Finance Commission, it also suggests measures that are needed to improve the finances of the consolidated fund of a state and also to supplement resources of the panchayats and municipalities in states. So the continuance or modification of the terms of any agreement that are entered into by the government of India with the government of any state under which are mentioned in Part B of the first schedule under Clause 1 of Article 278 and Article 306. So, terms of agreement that are there between the government of India and between any state with regard to financial matters, they are also determined by the Finance Commission of India, and the commission it shall use the latest census for drawing the population data while making recommendations. Now let us see some of the procedures that the Finance Commission of India follows. So the work of the Finance Commission, it starts soon after the government announces the composition and terms of reference of the Finance Commission. Now in the very first phase, what the Finance Commission does is that it addresses letters to the state governments. And in these letters, it asks the state governments to submit estimates of their expenditure and revenue for the next 5 years. And once these estimates are received, these estimates of expenditure and revenue are received from the state governments, the commission it scrutinizes these estimates and calls for the concerned officers from states to its headquarters in Delhi for clarification. So after receiving these estimates, it scrutinizes them and it calls the concerned officers from the states to Delhi in order to seek certain clarifications regarding the estimates. And after this process is completed, these estimates of these different states are revised accordingly. The Finance Commission, after revising these estimates, it undertakes a tour in all states in subsequent phases. So, normally the Commission, it hears the Chief Minister and the Finance Minister of each state vis-a-vis the financial estimates that have been delved upon. Here the states can submit a memorandum outlining their needs and demands as well. The Finance Commission, it also hears and receives memoranda pertaining to finances from industry and bankers as well. So not only from the state governments, but it can also receive memorandums from the from the industry and bankers also. After this, this stage is followed by the final phase, wherein the finance commission, it meets in Delhi to finalize the report of each and every state, and it submits its report to the President of India a few months before the annual budget presentation. And based on this report, the President then recommends the same for the consideration and implementation by the Union Cabinet. So, this is how this entire procedure is completed. So, we can see that it is a very democratic procedure that the Finance Commission of India follows in doing its work, in coming up with its report, in giving its recommendation. However, one thing must be mentioned, that its function is very much advisory in nature. Its recommendations are only advices, they are not binding. So that is why there are limitations on its functionings as well. The government, the union government or the state governments may or may not heed to its recommendations. They are not binding. That has to be kept in mind. So we have so far discussed as part of this block 4, we have discussed the Niti Aayog, which is the successor to the Planning Commission of India, which was established in 2015. We have discussed its composition, we have discussed its functions. Afterwards, we have discussed the Union Public Service Commission. It's called the constitutional provisions that are that are there regarding the Union Public Service Commission. Article 315, which stipulates for its establishment, and also we have discussed the composition of the UPSC as well as its functions. Afterwards, we have discussed the working of the Election Commission, the constitutional provisions, Article 324 regarding the Election Commission of India, its functions in conducting, its role in conducting free and fair elections, and also we have discussed its functions in preparing the electoral rolls, in conducting free and fair elections at the union level as well as the state levels. And we have also discussed some of the mechanisms, some of the initiatives that the Election Commission of India has adopted for modernizing itself. For example, the adoption of the epic cards or the electoral photo identity cards, right, to make the electoral process more transparent. The introduction of the electronic voting machines or the EVMs, and also the voter verified paper audit trail or VVPAT. We have discussed these as part of the Election Commission of India, its initiatives for modernizing. And we have also discussed how the Election Commission of India has set limits on the spending, financial spending in Legislative Assembly and Lok Sabha elections, and how it is making use of the services of officers from the Indian Revenue Service and Income Tax Department in order to curb excessive financial use of excessive money in elections. Afterwards, we discussed the role of the Finance Commission of India, its constitutional provisions, what the Constitution has entrusted the President of India with the responsibility of constituting a finance commission within 5 years, every 5 years, and the provisions that are there in the Article 280 of the Constitution of India regarding the terms of reference as well as the composition of the Finance Commission of India. We have also discussed what are the functions the Finance Commission of India performs in deciding the distribution of the net proceeds of the tax revenues between not only the union and the states but also among the states, and also in determining the principles based on which these grants in aids are to be given to the states. We have discussed all these things in today's class, and we have also discussed the procedure of working of the Finance Commission of India, how it prepares its reports, how it goes to every state. So in the next class we'll be discussing the Central Vigilance Commission. Thank you for attending this session. Namaste.